From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Hey there, it's Dina. A quick note before we start. Today's episode is a little different. Twice a month, we team up with our friends over at 1A for what we call Cyber Monday. Host Jen White and I talk for a bit, and then we play part of one of our podcast episodes, and then typically we take calls from listeners. Today's Cyber Monday is on piano scams, and the first voice you'll hear is from 1A's guest host, Elliot Williams. Take a listen.
You know the phrase, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But what if instead of too good, it sounds just plausible enough? Like, say, somebody giving away a piano because they're moving across the country, but asking you to pay a shipping fee. Or offering a great job and sending you the equipment if you'll cover the delivery cost. Today, as part of our ongoing series, Cyber Monday, we're talking about scams. We go beyond the kind that show up in your spam folder or come with flashing red flags. These are quieter, more targeted, and they prey on what makes us human. It's not a digital hack, but an emotional one. As with every Cyber Monday, we're joined now in studio by Dina Temple-Raston. She's the host and managing editor of Click Here. That's a twice-weekly tech news podcast from PRX and Recorded Future News. Dina, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So Dina, before we get into the story of the two people you profile, Patricia and her son Matthew, walk us into this world a little. What is a piano scam?
Well, what's fascinating about piano scams is it's really just a variation on a very old con. Someone offers you something really valuable, in this case, a high-end piano, and all they ask you for is this small fee to ship it. And it's emotionally disarming just on the face of it, because who doesn't want to believe in a little bit of good luck? Now, there's this cybersecurity firm called Proofpoint that says in the first half of last year, they had tracked over 125,000 emails connected to precisely this kind of scam. So those are just the ones they caught. So you can imagine how prevalent this is.
Now, so widespread, tell us how widespread do we get a sense as to how these are?
Well, they're targeting music schools, they're targeting music stores, but they're targeting people at home too. So the victim we follow in our episode is a mother in Florida. Her name's Patricia, and she just wanted to get a piano for her young son. He had shown this unexpected musical talent, and she thought that the playing might help him a little bit emotionally because he'd been diagnosed with a mood regulation disorder. So she goes online. She's looking for something affordable. You can imagine yourself being in her shoes doing this. And then she thought she'd found it. But in fact, she was being drawn into this thing that's much more calculated.
Now, a common response is often when people get swindled out of their money, and you deal with them a lot or you profile them a lot on Click Here, is, well, why didn't you look into it to make sure it was legitimate? But piano scams in particular seem particularly successful against people who did seem to do their homework. Tell us about that.
Well, think about it, right? You're looking for a piano. A lot of people don't buy new pianos. You buy them used. So this is a normal thing that you would do. And part of this that really surprised me is Patricia did all the right things. In fact, she did more things than I might have done if I was looking for a piano. She Googled the seller. She checked the freight company. She confirmed social media profiles. She even found the shipping company's website, which looked totally legitimate to her. And in fact, she finds out later that it had just been created weeks before. But at the time, it all sort of rang true. And that's what makes these scams so hard to detect. Scammers know how to mirror authenticity. They anticipate the things you'll check. They fake it. It's social engineering at its most advanced.
We're talking to Dina Temple-Raston. She's the host and managing editor of Click Here. That's a twice-weekly tech news podcast from Recorded Future News and PRX. Now, I want to pick up on that last thing you said there, this idea of social engineering. Briefly, what is social engineering?
It's playing on your emotions. It's not malware, it's not ransomware. It's just a persuasive story that you want to believe. And it usually comes with a little sense of urgency. There's very little money up front. One expert we spoke to calls these kinds of scams brain hacking, that the scammers create just enough emotional incentive, whether it's the dream piano, a dream job, free concert tickets, and then your sort of rational filters that are usually up just go offline.
Now, along those lines, what lengths did you find that scammers went through to make it seem like pianos were actually being sent to people?
Well, there were pictures of pianos. There were sob stories. My husband died. He played the piano every day. It hurts me to just have it in the house, so I want to get rid of it. Or, I'm moving across country, and to take it with me is more than I can do. I mean, when you think about it, pianos are really a hassle to move if you've ever had one. So just the plausibility, just the basis of it is like, I don't want to drag this piano halfway across the country. It makes sense. You could see why someone might let it just go for shipping fees.
Now, it's not just about pianos, and I would assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that the tactics used for scamming or duping someone into purchasing a piano can easily translate into other items or products or services or whatever else. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Products, services, jobs. It might not be a piano, it might be a car. We talked to one guy in Paris who was convinced that he was getting this Peugeot and it was about the right price and everything else. He did it completely online. And then he shows up at this train station where he's supposed to meet the seller and get the car, and nothing. And so this is happening everywhere. So your hackles kind of have to be up all the time when you're online and you're looking for these big ticket items.
And I'm going to ask you before we pause for a moment, what have you discovered were good ways to not fall into scammers' traps and to avoid doing exactly what they want you to do?
So 2 words are key: slow down.
Huh.
So these scams are designed to make you feel like you have to act fast. And that's the problem. You also have to verify. So if you get a text from FedEx about a missing package, don't click on the link. Go to FedEx.com. I always double check the address as well. If you think it might be a scam, look at the address line, and more often than not, there are X's and numbers and something spelled wrong, and that should tell you right away that's a scam.
We're going to pause right here. We're talking to Dina Temple-Raston. She's the host and managing editor of Click Here. That's a twice-weekly tech news podcast from Recorded Future News and PRX. Coming up, we listen to an episode of Click Here. Dina meets Patricia, who went onto Facebook to find a piano for her son Matthew. She ends up finding one. And then the transaction turns into something else entirely. I'm Elliot Williams, in for Jen White. This is 1A.
Support for Click Here comes from Clean My Mac. If you're like me, your cloud drives are packed with files you don't actually need. Sync duplicates, old backups, random junk just gobbling up storage. Clean My Mac takes care of that with a new cloud cleanup feature. It connects to your accounts on iCloud, OneDrive, and Google Drive and scans to find large space wasters, both in cloud storage and on your device. And while my Mac health is apparently excellent, Clean My Mac found 8 gigabytes of junk on my computer and tons of duplicate downloads, and it removed a bunch of leftover applications I never use. Who knew? And this happens locally on my Mac, so my data stays safe. Clean My Mac has a whole suite of other features too, including their Moonlight anti-malware engine. With just a click, the anti-malware tool scans and removes viruses, ensuring your Mac remains threat-free. Not everything deserves eternal storage, so why pay for it? Get tidy today with Clean My Mac. Try it free for 7 days and use the promo code CLICK to save an additional 20% on your purchase at cleanmymac.com. From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. You're listening to a Cyber Monday show we did with WAMU and NPR's 1A Midday Magazine. And we talked about the ways scams are changing and how they prey on people in moments of hope or need. As part of that discussion, we shared a story we reported on a few months back about a mother in Florida who wanted to buy a piano for her son. And she found one for free on Facebook. All she had to do was cover the shipping. Take a listen.
Oh, wait, no, it's... I don't remember the last part.
Just try anything.
This is Patricia DeBeer, and her son Matthew is the one who's playing.
Try it in the lighter notes, the middle notes.
Like this one?
Yeah.
A few years ago, Patricia was sitting in her living room in Florida. Matthew was about 6 years old at the time, and he was seated before a small toy piano when out of the blue, he suddenly declared,
He goes, hey, listen to this. And then he started to play a little tune on the piano, a small piano that we had, a very, very small one.
the tune was something he'd heard on YouTube.
And I asked him where he learned it. And he said, I just heard the song and I figured it out.
Patricia was amazed, not just because he seemed to be plucking the tune out of thin air, but because he seemed to be so at peace while he was doing it. At 6, Matthew was like most boys his age, but he also had trouble regulating his emotions. He'd been diagnosed with a condition called disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Patricia wondered if learning to play the piano might give Matthew an outlet for all those feelings he struggled with. So Patricia went online to see if there was a used piano for him.
I was on Facebook and I was just browsing. And I came across this listing for a piano that was free.
And not just any piano, a Steinway Baby Grand, a kind of Rolls-Royce of pianos.
So I do know what Steinway is, and I know it's a very expensive piano. And it was a baby grand piano. So I was like, that's pretty nice.
She clicked on the listing. The piano, it said, was free. The buyer just needed to pay for the shipping.
So in the listing, it stated basically that the person that was selling it online was selling it for a sister or a family member. And the person that was listing it was a bit older, so I understood that. I know my mother's not the best at listing things on Facebook, so sometimes I'd help out.
And did you reach out to the person?
I did. And that's when they referred me to email this person, Dr. Joyce.
When she emailed, Dr. Joyce told her that the Steinway had belonged to her husband, and he had recently passed away. And then Dr. Joyce said she was making a fresh start and was moving across the country.
She then said that the piano had already been shipped out, but I could contact the freight company that was shipping it and have it rerouted.
Dr. Joyce told Patricia she could have the piano for free if she'd just cover the $625 rerouting fee.
In my work, we ship large tables, and there has been times where I've had to reroute packages. And it takes a bit of work, but it can be done.
She sent the money through the Zelle payment app, and she got a tracking number and a delivery date, and this was awesome, until it wasn't. On the day the piano was set to be delivered, Patricia got a strange message.
I got an email saying that I needed to pay an interstate fee.
The shipping company was asking for an additional $1,000.
And I was like, what the world's an interstate fee? I work with shipping and I ship across state lines all the time. You don't pay any fees to cross state borders.
Patricia owns a furniture company, so she's very familiar with the ins and outs of shipping. Even so, she double-checked, went back to the shipping company website, but this time to check when it had been registered.
And that's when I realized the website had only been created like 2 weeks prior or a month prior.
Patricia realized there was no piano coming, and she had lost more than $600. But more importantly, Matthew wasn't going to get that piano that could have helped him. Looking back on it, Patricia had done just about everything she could to make sure Matthew's free piano was on the up and up. When she called the shipping company, she got the name of the woman she spoke to and then actually looked her up on Facebook, just to make sure the employee was who she said she was.
I went to her profile. I went through her friends. Her profile was an older profile. She had several friends where people are wishing her happy birthday. There's communication going on her profile, so I know her profile was a legitimate profile.
She also vetted the person who was selling the piano, that Dr. Joyce.
The Dr. Joyce lady, I looked her up. There's some Dr. Joyce out there and kind of has a tie to Vero Beach. So I was like, okay, there's legitimacy there.
She even dug into the shipping company.
Everything was legitimate looking. They had tracking numbers, and the tracking numbers you could input onto their website, and then it would pull up your details.
The whole pay me through Zelle situation passed Patricia's smell test too. She was used to doing that.
I pay a lot of my trucking companies through Zelle. So for a trucking company to say, hey, send it by Zelle, completely understand it.
So when instead of a baby grand, Patricia got an email asking for more money, she began to retrace her steps. She called the delivery company's number, the one she had used before.
And all of a sudden, it's nobody's answering, nobody's anything.
And it just keeps ringing. So she goes online to check out the shipping company's Facebook page. It was real, just like she thought. But she found out later scammers had created it. And the shipping website, that was made up too.
The website was completely a shipping website. When you see logistics all day, it was a logistics website. So I never thought that somebody would go that far.
Objectively, this shouldn't have happened to Patricia. She works with shipping every day and even did a ton of due diligence.
I was amazed that I somehow got swindled, checking all my boxes.
Of course, thinking through all the angles ahead of time is the essence of a great scam. Just ask Selena Larson.
That is something that the best social engineers will do, is they will do their research to try and see what can be a convincing story.
Selena is a senior threat intelligence analyst at Proofpoint, a California cybersecurity company, and she co-authored a recent report on the surge of piano scams. They've seen more than 100,000 piano scam emails just in the first half of 2024 alone.
When I first saw this, I was like, I find these scams to be so interesting because who's looking for a piano?
But any musician will tell you this is a pretty common way to get a piano. A colleague of Selena's, who's a pianist, told her as much.
He's like, no, this is how people get rid of pianos. They give them away for free, but ask the recipient to pay shipping because that can be the most expensive part of it.
Starting around January 2024, a flood of postings for free pianos started making the rounds on the web. Selena and her colleagues found more than 125,000 emails linked to these scams. And lots of people have been falling for them, not just Patricia.
So it's actually pretty clever. So if you are a musician or looking for a piano, this is not necessarily something that would immediately seem suspicious because oftentimes how they're, gotten rid of from people just, I just want to get this out of my house, but pay for shipping and it's yours.
Which, of course, is the trick. Scammers are playing on two ideas. First, the scam is pretty simple. It's not built around something really complicated like crypto. And second, they tap into people's hopes, dreams, and wishes and then try to satisfy them. All this can be yours, they say, as long as you
pay a little bit of money up front to whoever is offering the goods or service.
The road to hell is paved with a whole host of these kinds of scams. Most of them are oldies but goodies. There's job fraud,
where they'll pretend that they're offering a job and say, okay, we'll send you the equipment needed for your job if you just send me shipping.
Event ticket fraud.
Oh, if you've won some tickets, if you just pay me this money, we'll send you the tickets.
even investment fraud.
Oh, if you pay a little bit now, if you give me a small payment of cryptocurrency, you'll get a larger one in return.
All of this happens because of the most basic thing, human desire.
People can say the right things to trigger your brain to make certain decisions. And the best social engineers are also the best brain hackers. And that's really what it comes down to. There's no technological vulnerability that they're exploiting. They're exploiting the human experience.
And more than anything else, this is the power of this kind of scam. The weak link here is humanity, which makes it nearly impossible to stop.
It's the human piece of the cybersecurity puzzle that you can't predict and you can't patch. It's so important for us to be aware of the different ways that people can manipulate us.
Gary Gordon has been in the piano industry for 4 decades. He's the sales manager at the Riverton Piano Company, just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And he took us on a little tour of the showroom.
Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a few different pianos in here. We carry Yamaha, Baldwin, Schumann, Roland, Busendorfer.
It's 5,000 square feet with grand pianos everywhere, including a Busendorfer. They're a handmade piano from Austria. Is that the Busendorfer there? Wow, look at that.
Yeah, you can see it's $286,000.
How much?
$286,299.
Wow. He has a theory about why piano scams are running rampant these days. He links it all to the pandemic.
People didn't have anything to do. Music went through the roof. Piano sales were just amazing.
Locked in your house? Time to finally learn to play the piano like you've always said you wanted to.
I kind of felt a little strange during the pandemic because, a lot of my friends and stuff were not doing so well. And I had my best 2 years ever. I mean, good gosh, 2022, I sold over $1 million worth of pianos.
Gary wrote a blog post on all the different scams he'd been seeing. And there was one in particular that stood out. One that he himself had been targeted with at least 6 times. And it seemed tailor-made for music stores like his.
They'll see a used piano that I have advertised, and they're like, okay, I want to buy that. And I'm like, okay, well, here, I'll write this up and, send me an invoice send me a check for whatever, $3,000.
They purposely overpay, sending a cashier's check for $4,000.
So then I contact them back and say, the piano was $3,000. You sent me $4,000. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, that's for my movers. I'm going to send my delivery people out to pick it up. And just so I don't have to write 2 checks, whatever, if you just write them a check for the $1,000, then, that'll take care of it. You'll be paid and they'll be paid. If you're dumb enough, they take your piano and they take $1,000. And the check turns out to be bogus.
Gary says there's a message in all of this. Verify.
And, you can usually verify things by asking questions, asking for more pictures or the serial number of the piano, things like that. That's what we always tell people to ask. Find out what the name of the piano is, the serial number, the model number, the size, because when they bring that stuff into me,
Gary says he can just look up the serial number and tell you the piano was made in 1972, not 2022. If they claim it's a particular model, he can tell you it doesn't match the picture. It's supposed to have spade legs, not straight ones. Even in elaborate schemes like the one targeting Patricia and her son, there are clues, if only you're willing to look for them. The problem is most people, excited about getting their dream piano, dream job, or dream concert tickets, don't want to look twice. It's understandable, because even people who study and work on fighting these kinds of scams often don't, according to Selena Larson of Proofpoint.
I think that that's really what's interesting and why I think fraud is a little bit underappreciated and undercovered from the cybersecurity perspective, because oftentimes us as security researchers, we have this bias to things that are hackable.
Find the malware. What's buried in the code? Where was the network compromised? That's the stuff we tell you about all the time. But these scams are different.
The only activity is the conversation and the money being transferred. So I think that this kind of exposes a bias in cybersecurity. Oftentimes you hear people say, fraud isn't even a cybersecurity thing because there's no vulnerability, there's no malware. But there is this sort of exploiting people that we don't really think of as the same thing as malware, but it really leads to some very, very serious consequences.
Consequences that really aren't so different from what malware can cause. The loss of time and money, and another chink in the armor of trust. Whether you're an artist like Gary, who has built a career around the music he loves, or Patricia's son Matthew, who was just learning to play. Once she knew she was scammed, there wasn't much Patricia could do. The money was gone. Though Patricia said she did have a small way to get even.
But I did have my fun with them in the end. I recorded, I think I got about 5 email addresses from them, and I reported every single email address that they came across so that Zelle would block all those accounts.
As for her son Matthew, he's still drawn to pianos when he sees them.
We were in a thrift store, and he was like starting to play, and it was like, then people started to look, and he's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this.
Fortunately, there's a piano in their building, so he occasionally will go and play that, though Patricia says he's kind of lost interest.
That's all I know.
That's all you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to try more?
No.
No?
That was part of our story on piano scams. Patricia and her son Matthew caught up in a con that looked and felt real until it wasn't. It's a reminder that the weak link isn't always the technology. It's us. This episode comes from our friends at 1A, NPR and WAMU's daily talk show. When we come back, more from 1A, and we take some calls from listeners. Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from Claude AI. Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough. It's the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and thinks with you, not for you. Whether you're debugging code at midnight or strategizing for your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle the problems that matter. Who needs a regular search when you can have a conversation with Claude about what you're looking for? And, unlike some of the other AI helpers I've used, Claude doesn't retain information from previous conversations, so it's private. Ready to tackle bigger problems? Sign up for Claude today and get 50% off Claude Pro when you use my link, claude.ai/clickhere. That's claude.ai/clickhere right now for 50% off your first 3 months of Claude Pro. And that includes access to all the features mentioned in today's episode. claude.ai/clickhere.
In cybersecurity, your greatest fear isn't the threats you see, it's the critical signals lost in the noise. Every day, security teams sort through millions of potential threats. That's why Recorded Future exists, to give you precision intelligence tuned to your needs. Our advanced AI detects patterns humans might miss, while our threat intelligence experts, veterans of military and intelligence services, provide crucial context. With Recorded Future, you gain the confidence to identify critical threats and the precision to act before they become attacks. Learn why 1,900-plus customers, including 45-plus sovereign governments, trust us to detect threats faster and achieve 350% plus ROI within a year.
We're back with more from our conversation on WAMU's 1A news program. Here's guest host Elliot Williams again.
Let's get back to our series Cyber Monday with the podcast Click Here. Today we get into the latest scams and how you can best protect yourself. We're here with Dina Temple-Raston, host and managing editor of Click Here. It's a twice-weekly tech news podcast from Recorded Future News and PRX. Dina, welcome.
Thank you.
And now let's add another voice to the conversation. Joining us now from Denver, Colorado is Amy Nofziger. She's the director of fraud victim support at AARP, and she runs the organization's free fraud helpline, the Fraud Watch Network. Amy, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So, Amy, we've heard a lot today about piano scams, a particular kind of scam with people offering too good to be true deals online for a small fee. But that's not news to anyone that there are hundreds of kinds of scams out there. The Federal Trade Commission says fraudsters stole more than $12.5 billion, billion with a B, from people in the United States in 2024. What other kinds of scams are you seeing most often right now?
A lot. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot out there. On the helpline right now, our top 5 are identity theft, imposter scams relating to like a business imposter. So someone pretending to be from Amazon, PayPal, any large company. Number 3 right now, which actually just moved up, is online dating scams. That's still a real big problem. Tech support scams and then imposter government scams. And that's where people are pretending to be, whether from the FBI, IRS, saying there's a problem with your taxes. But those are the ones that we're most often hearing about on the helpline right now.
Now, it's interesting, the helpline that you're talking about is AARP, but on the other end of the age spectrum in the United States, Enrique from Kentucky called in. Let's hear Enrique.
I'm only 21, so I think I'm pretty good at looking for scams and online scams, but I kind of just got scammed about a month ago when I got a message from a number saying that I needed to pay a toll bill from a bridge that I crossed, which I had earlier in the year, and I don't remember paying for it, so I got really worried because the message said that if you don't pay it, it'll double in the next week. So I clicked the link, and it was the Kentucky government website, and it looked just like it. So I put all my information down. Then about a week later, I see that my debit card was hacked.
So, Amy, as Enrique seems to indicate, there are elderly people who are scammed, but also members of, I assume, Generation Z who are being scammed. So my question for you is, who's most likely to be the target of a scam?
Every single one of us, no question. And that's a myth that ARP is certainly trying to break down. When an older adult is a victim of a scam, they're going to lose more money because they have more money to lose. And they might have more targets on their back because it's the reason why banks are robbed, right? The criminals go where the money is, and older adults hold the majority of wealth in the United States. But they will steal from anyone. If you have $5, they will steal it from you. And interestingly enough, even though we are AARP, about half of our calls to the helpline are from people under 50. And so the biggest thing to take away from this is it doesn't matter how old you are. If you have $1 to your name, there is a criminal trying to steal it from you.
Along those lines, Charlie, the multi-generational nature of this, Charlie emails us, I've been buying merchandise online since the 90s and have never been scammed before. Having 2 millennial kids certainly helped, but they grew up and moved away. 2 months ago, I received a pop-up message from a company that I'd purchased clothing from before promoting an incredible sale. Of course, I jumped at the chance for the deals. Well, weeks go by and nothing. I called my credit card company and they handled it for me. I felt so stupid. It sounds too good to be true, and it is. Now, Dina, this idea of too good to be true, particularly when it comes to the kinds of money that can be made online, there's a rising prevalence of cryptocurrency as a way for scammers to take people's money. So your team at Click Here did another podcast episode on scams, this time about WhatsApp groups that invite people to invest in crypto. You profiled a teacher named Stephanie. She thought this group was a legitimate way to make money and pay off some credit card debt. Now, she saw some success early on, but then others in the group asked her to invest $50,000. Let's listen.
This is money I never touch for the rainiest of days.
But this was different. This felt like a sure thing.
So that was really enticing to think, okay, if I take money out of my teacher retirement system. This will help me pay off the credit card debt that I have and all the other debts that I have, and I'll end up coming out on top.
So Stephanie withdrew $50,000, converted it to crypto, and transferred it into her XMed Coin account. And then she sat back, biding her time until she became just like the other happy investors in the group.
They're all talking about how much money they make and how excited they are. We're going to pay off debt. I'm living this new lifestyle. I was able to buy my wife a new car. I was able to go on vacation with my family. Then you're like, oh my gosh, I want those things too.
So, Dina, of course, Stephanie eventually loses the money she invested. Now, what did you find out from your reporting about how scammers are using crypto to steal from people like Stephanie?
Well, crypto's faster.
Yeah.
So it allows them to sort of have a scale that they wouldn't necessarily be able to have generally. I mean, in her particular case, it was quite interesting because her retirement account had offered her a legitimate sort of education system to help her invest, and she thought this particular scam was part of that. So she was sort of open to it. I think as a general matter, because crypto is really hard to trace, really hard to get back, if someone's asking you to pay for something in crypto, your hackles should be up.
Now, Amy, what should people know about how cryptocurrency can be a method for scammers to steal their savings?
Oftentimes, these opportunities come in what we call a raw number text message. It's where you'll get a text message saying, hey, are you coming for dinner tonight? And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't remember having plans. So you write back, sorry, I think you have the wrong number. Conversation ensues. Next thing you know, their cousin's uncle is a famous crypto investor. And that's how a lot of people are getting involved in these crypto investment scams. And they are stealing millions of dollars. The other way on the helpline is we're seeing that the criminals are using whether an imposter scam or a romance scam, but they're directing their victims to a crypto ATM machine. And right now, there's about 45,000 of them located in the United States at convenience stores, liquor stores. And these machines are a conduit for people to lose tens of thousands of dollars. And there is actually a lot of great legislation going on to put better consumer protections on these machines. As you said, I'm based in Colorado, and ours just passed last week. So a new customer can only put $2,000 in at one time, whereas before, people were putting in $80,000 and sending it directly to the criminal.
Now, Dina, what's fascinating there is that what's being played on here is basic emotions like hope, guilt, anguish. How do those emotions play into the hands of scammers?
Oh, well, it's been con artists our whole life long have always used those emotions against us to get what they want, whether it's a shell game where you think you're following it or whether it's crypto. And I think that the adage, people say it all the time, but it really is true. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So you should verify and check it out.
That's Dina Temple-Raston, host and managing editor of the tech news podcast Click Here. We're also talking to Amy Nofziger. She's director of fraud victim support at AARP. I'm Elliot Williams. You're listening to 1A.
You've been listening to a special episode of Click Here, an edited version of a show we did with WAMU's 1A News magazine. You can hear the full segment with more listener calls and questions over at WAMU.org. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. Our producers are Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, and Zach Hirsch. And special thanks this week to 1A guest host Elliot Williams and producer Michael Ferliro. Click Here is edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music by Ben Livingston, with some other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Jesse Neiswanger and Jake Cook are our sound designers and engineers. Tune in Friday for Mic Drop, which features our favorite interview of the week. We'll see you then.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.